Okay, welcome everybody to the February 8th, 2023 regular meeting of the Portsmouth Conservation Commission. The first item on the agenda is the election of officers. And Peter, did you want to start with a little background on the process?
Well, yeah, every year we do an election of officers, and typically the way that it's done is like any other business before the Conservation Commission. There's a motion on the floor, and the motion can be to elect a chair, or a motion to elect a chair and a vice chair, and then a second, and then that's where discussion can take place. So if you have reason to support the motion or not support the motion, just like any motion, that's where you can sort of voice your interest, or your if you have a different path you want to follow, you can express why you're not going to support the motion, that kind of thing. So just as similar to any other motion on the floor is how we've always done it. And then we don't typically have the alternates vote on the election, and that's all the boards do it that way, is my understanding. I think that's it. Any other?
Alternates do or don't?
Is I leave anything out?
No,
That's it, yeah.
No, I think,
And I guess the only other point is it usually is in January, but we didn't have a meeting last month, so that's why we're doing it in February.
so we'll have a motion and then discuss the motion, and if there's opportunities for more people to, express whatever their
Yep.
wants and needs are at that point. So, Allison,
I'd like to make a motion that Samantha Collins be the chairperson and Barbara McMillan be the vice chair.
thank you. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, just seconds, thank you. So discussion, so is there any,
Well, my reasoning is that you've been on the commission a very long time, you know how things run, and I think you both do a splendid job. So that's why I would appreciate it if you could stay on in those capacities.
Thanks, Allison.
anybody else?
Do you want and I want to talk?
Sure.
I can. So I appreciate that, Allison. I've been on the Conservation Commission going on, it'll be 6 years in April, I think. And for those of you who don't know, before, way before this, I was an environmental consultant, and I have my master's in coastal geomorphology, which is the changing of coastal landscapes, which many of you probably don't know because I don't really do any of that anymore.
Find out.
I know. So I do have a lot of background in this, and I thoroughly enjoy all the applications that come in front of us and getting to learn about new places in Portsmouth. I've only lived here since 2012, which, wow, is 10 years now. But there's still plenty I don't know about Portsmouth, and I love kind of finding these new places and helping to conserve what we have left. I'm also very happy to be working with Barbara as vice chair. I obviously have 2 little kids, so I don't have a ton of time, but this is something I really enjoy and want to devote what time I have to it. And Barbara has been kind enough to stay on as vice chair to kind of help me with a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, so that both of us together can continue in the capacity that Barbara's been doing a lot of on her own.
Awesome, thanks. I had no idea that's what you did before.
Yeah, I know.
That's great to know. Now we can tap you into your
great.
So my background is having worked for the Department of Environmental Services as the Watershed Outreach Coordinator for 20 years, and then also being very active in a lot of other environmental boards and things like that over the years. I really feel like I still have something to give to the Conservation Commission, and as support from Samantha and everybody else, and really enjoy some of the things on the sidelines that different commissioners have brought up and started, and I really want to stay on the commission and be active in those things. And then Samantha has been awesome as far as a vice chair. When she has been the chair during some of the meetings, she really takes a great role of leadership and does it really well, and is very diplomatic and not biased, and very knowledgeable on the topics, and has a lot to contribute. So I'm excited about you taking over as chair.
Thanks, Barbara.
So I don't know if there's other discussion. Anybody else? So do we want to have a we're all here, so we can just have a regular vote, right? We don't have to do a, roll
Right,
call
there's
we should
nobody
do.
on, there's nobody on Zoom from the commission, so you can do a regular vote. Or
For
you can do,
boards,
or you
should
can do a
we-
roll call. if you want,
Maybe we
however you
should
wanna
do a
go.
roll call for the first one, I can't remember
Okay.
that process, but, you want to,
Do you want me to do that?
sure. I guess, I'm trying to think, should we or shouldn't we?
It's really up to you, Barbara.
Okay, I'll say then, no, we'll just do a
Okay,
regular
yeah.
vote. So all those in favor? And opposed? And two not voting as alternates, right?
Unanimous of who voted.
Okay,
Thank you.
so the motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Barbara's going to finish out this meeting, though.
I don't get to.
Barbara, may I have a point, I just have a point of order question, I guess. According to our rules, we're supposed to meet once a month. Why didn't we meet last month?
Why didn't we meet last month?
Yeah.
We didn't have anything on the agenda.
I mean, any land use things on the agenda, but this election would have been one. We might have wanted to talk about some of the things, you know, extra time for us to all get together. For my book, you know. So, who can not? When do we not have a meeting? And whose call is that, you know?
So is there a way to change
So
the
you
process a
could,
little
you
bit?
could poll the commission and see if, or you could call the meeting. It's up to you, I guess. That's typically in the past, that's how we've done it. If there's no applications, then we postpone the meeting. But there's no reason you can't have it. So that's something to consider for the future, I think.
So maybe if you don't have anything on the agenda, you can contact the chair.
And then I can put it out and just see if anybody has anything that they want to talk
Yeah.
about.
Or we can come up with things if you want to.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yep,
Thanks, Ted.
awesome. Okay. I just wanted to say also, just in case anybody's here, that we did have one postponement for the 105 Bartlett Street.
Yeah, we received a email from them that they want to postpone until next month's meeting.
But just to let everybody know.
Do we
So-
need to do a motion?
I think you should have a vote because it's not on the advertised agenda, so then the postponement would be formalized to the next month's meeting.
Jess?
I will make a, I can't think of the word now.
Motion.
A motion, there we go. I will make a motion to postpone the application of 105 Bartlett Street to the March meeting at the request of the applicant.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, great.
Excuse me, do we know the legal status of 105 Bartlett Street right now?
I just know it's there's
Good
a
question.
court case going on over the site plan review approval, the city's approval.
So I did know that the Housing Appeals Board, right, overturned we have new members too, but there was an appeal of a decision at 105 Bartlett Street. The appeal basically was that they were turned down at the planning board or at the Board of Adjustment.
I'm sorry, what are you,
What was the appeal on the Housing Appeals Board?
the appeal of the planning board's decision went to the Housing Appeals Board.
I get you.
So that's instead of the Superior Court, it went to the Housing Appeals Board, which is a path that's allowed in the New Hampshire legislature, or the judicial system now.
That's new.
It's new, yeah, new in the last 5-10 years, something like that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sorry about that. Next item on the agenda is the approval for the December 14th, 2022 meeting minutes. Anybody want to make a motion? Allison?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the December meeting.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
Second. Discussion? No? I had one comment. It looks like Stuart is both there and not there, I think. He's present.
Pretty good trick.
It was like present and not, and absent.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
think
you're right.
you were sick, weren't you, or out of town?
Yes.
Yeah, he was out of town,
So he was not, should be listed as not
actually
present.
Yeah, he is listed as absent, but he's also listed as present.
That's amazing. All right, we'll fix that. Sorry about that.
Great. No other changes? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the State Wetland Bureau application, new business, and we have a minor impact for 393 Newcastle Ave. Is anybody here to speak to that?
Yes. Thank you. I'm Steve Riker from AMBA Engineering. I'm here today on behalf of David Sinclair, who's the property owner at 393 Newcastle Ave. This is a DES wetlands application, and DES will be looking for comment from this commission in regards to this application. In their review process, we had a site walk last Wednesday, which was the February 1st, and gave a brief overview of the project at the site walk, answered some questions. I'll sort of do the same here today for those who maybe weren't at the site walk. This is the existing conditions plan. There's an existing, let's see if I can get this to work. It says right on it, hold top button for pointer. There's a structure, residential structure here. I believe there are 3 units in this building. There's parking on one side of the building, as well as a parking in a driveway on the other side of the building. Almost the entire lot is in the 100-foot tidal buffer zone. I've got an 11 by 17, so it's hard to see. Yeah, almost the entire lot, except for this very corner right here is in the 100-foot tidal buffer zone, so therefore requires a DES wetland application to perform site improvements as proposed. So sheet C2 is the permit plan. And we've colored it to identify impact areas and what we're doing. The project proposes a driveway reconfiguration / expansion. That area is shown in the orange. The blue area around it is the temporary construction impact area. That's the area that will be disturbed to perform the installation. In addition, the driveway will be, it'll consist of porous pavement, and that porous pavement detail is shown on sheet D1, which is the last sheet in the plan sets. Yep, the porous paving detail is this detail in the upper right-hand corner, which shows the base that's constructed underneath the actual surface itself. Going back to C2, the other thing I wanted to point out was there's a walkway. There's a walkway that currently exists as a porous paver surface. That porous paver surface is going to remain. However, the property owner, while he's there doing all this work, is going to pull those pavers up, clean them, and replace them. On the other side of the building, there is a overhead electrical wire that goes from this pole and provides power to the home. The property owner would like to go underground with that, so this shows the underground trench, which the line will be laid in. Communications cable will also go in that same trench. And then the other area that's shown to the south of that is sewer. There's an existing clay sewer pipe that comes out of the home that's pretty old, and the owner also thought, while we're there doing work, let's replace that too. So those are the improvements that we're proposing. The impact area calculations are shown on this plan. A couple things to point out is we have a reduction in impervious surface on the lot from 30.9% to 24.4%. It appears to be about roughly 1,200 square feet. That's a pretty good reduction on the lot. That should improve stormwater treatment and quality that is associated with this lot. And lastly, back to the detail plan, which has all the required notes. Has a trench detail, the buried electric and communications cable detail, as well as the porous paver section detail. Also attached to this plan set, you should have a copy of the DES wetland application that was submitted to DES, which is currently under review. been accepted and it's under review, which has all the required maps, appendices, coastal functional assessment, coastal vulnerability assessment is in there as well. I think that's all I have. I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Steve. Questions? Allison?
Yes, I have a couple. So on page 44 and then again on page 77 in our packets, it says that the project proposes extension of existing docking. And
Oh.
I think that that's incorrect.
Sounds like a nice typo error on my part.
Okay.
That was page, sorry,
44
Allison.
and 77 in my packet, so I'm not quite sure where it would be.
I will find them.
Okay, and then another thing was that we talked about the fact that the edge of the grassed area on the sort of northeastern side looks like it's starting to degrade, and we recommended putting some plants there to help stabilize it.
That was this side,
Right
correct?
along there,
Yep,
yeah.
Yep.
So if you could add some plantings there that would help to stabilize that, it would be,
Yeah, the property owner is looking for a solution there. I've had that discussion with him, and I think he's going to plan something, because we could tear all that apart and replace it in kind with a permit, but I advised him that he should try plantings first.
yeah.
That's cheaper and doesn't require a permit,
Yep,
so.
just get some roots in there to help stabilize it.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
Has the owner thought about also not just where it had flooded, but sort of wrapping around the front, where the grass meets the
Yeah,
rocks?
we've had the conversation about,
Because he's got the little things
Yeah.
and it,
yeah, we've had the conversation about his entire frontage, because,
yeah. 'Cause it'd
yeah,
be
there's
good
some
for that,
signs
but
too with the,
Might just look nicer too.
yeah, on this side too. It's starting to curl over on that side as
Yeah.
well, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, Jeff.
Just in regards to the pervious surface, will the owner just sort of do a quick tutorial for the tenants about how to take care of it? There's a little bit of just...
So the tenants wouldn't take care of it. He would take care of it. He's the property owner.
Okay, so they don't have to do anything around maintenance really for it,
Nope.
even like shoveling and salting and sanding, and he does all that stuff for them?
He does.
Okay.
Obviously, you wouldn't want to sand this surface,
Right. That's,
and it
that's-
needs to be vacuumed at least once a year.
Right.
And when I was on site, interestingly enough, when I was on site taking photos for this application, the vacuum truck was across the street vacuuming that surface, Piscataqua Landscaping. So I got to see that little Zamboni work. It's pretty cool.
Great. I just wanted to check if they had any responsibility, that they just know how to take care of it well.
Yeah, it's on the, I believe it's on sheet D1 too.
Which
There should be a maintenance,
Yeah, I think you already mentioned that you would
Should be
do the
there.
maintenance, but if it
Yeah.
was ever, somebody else who was responsible for the maintenance, just making sure they knew how to do it as well.
yeah, whenever we propose porous pavement, we always have a conversation with the property owner, because one, it costs about 3 times the amount of regular asphalt, and then the cost of the maintenance. So that's kind of an upfront conversation we have before we even put it on a plan.
Perfect. And just for purposes of this formal discussion and anybody who wasn't at the site walk, the property owner's plan is still to replace any of those plantings and things that have to be dug up, but more specifically on the side of the,
Side of the house by the
electric-
sewer and,
Yeah.
yes, yep.
okay, great.
And Steve, just as follow-up to that, I couldn't, so where on D1 was the,
Yeah, I didn't see it. I think we might have to add it, and I can tell you that DS will catch that, because it's one of their items that they need to check the box. Typically, our detail has something underneath it in regards to how to maintain it, and it looks like our detail does not.
couldn't find it.
Yeah, there's usually a couple notes underneath under the detail itself.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, I know this isn't our permit, but
Yep.
we really like to have, if there's any way to have it be with the deed, that would be.
With the deed?
Yeah, with the deed, not just the homeowner having it through this plan, but having an actual document of maintenance with the deed or to pass on to the homeowners, more than just having it in the plan, because they don't have this plan in front of them all the time.
Understood, yep.
And because they've said the application is complete at this point, right?
From a DES standpoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So definitely
complete and under review. Yep.
have a note to add it. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
And I actually don't know the answer to this, and maybe I should, but, before you decide to go ahead with a porous pavement solution, is there some sort of a test of like the permeability of the existing soil?
Yeah, so we
I
did
know
a,
you- Yeah,
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, we dug a test pit. It's shown on C1. It's right there, test pit 1. And then the test pit log, what we call the test pit log, is right here, which shows, and I'll try to read some of it. So we have an estimated seasonal high water table of 32 inches. We had a total depth of 64 inches in the test pit. We had no restrictive feature within that 64 inches and no refusal in that 64 inches. That would mean we didn't have bedrock in 64 inches. That's what refusal means, couldn't go any farther. So, yeah, 32 inches is suitable. If you look at the detail, we have to dig down subgrade 7 plus 15, 22 inches. So the purpose of digging the test pit is to make sure that our base underneath the porous pavement isn't into the water table.
right.
We don't want to create a situation where we can't percolate water through it, which is the whole purpose.
Right.
So if it was in the water table,
Okay. So that's kind of the cutoff, is it's got to be able to,
yep.
okay, but it could be anywhere below that. Okay.
Good
Thanks
question.
for that explanation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Do you want to do a motion? Allison?
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve or to send a letter of agreement regarding the application on Newcastle Avenue with two stipulations. One is that plantings need to be added to the eastern side of the property between there and the deck to stabilize the bank. And the second is a maintenance plan for the porous surface.
Sounds good. Anybody else? Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And discussion? Speak to it at all? No. Thank you for the site visit.
Yeah, no,
That was really helpful.
I think it's great that you guys are doing site walks. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, it makes it actually easier almost. It's like, you don't have to guess. Okay. I think have a vote. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay.
Great, thank you. Have a good
Thanks a
night.
lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the standard dredge and fill for 227 Market Street. Anybody here to speak to that?
Good afternoon, everyone. Neil Hansen with Ty and Bond. Also here is the applicant, Joe McNamee with Granite State Minerals. So we're here for the state wetland permit application for a project that they're looking to do at the terminal there. As I think most of you were at the site walk that we had last week. The two pieces of this project involve the replacement of two of their existing mooring bollards. And then the second piece of this project is a stormwater upgrade for the site that is connected to their multi-sector general permit through the EPA, which requires them to treat certain contaminants of stormwater runoff through the site. So up on the screen here are the two mooring bollards, excuse me, that are they're looking to replace. The one on the left of the screen is the one that we were able to see on the site walk. The existing one is the red dot right there. The new one, they're looking to put a little bit to the, I believe that's the south of that existing bollard. The other one is here on the right side of the page. That is located on the back side of the salt pile, so that was the one that we were not able to see on the site walk. And both of those they're looking to upgrade to current standards because the two that are there are quite old. If we could go to the site plan, that'd be great.
Which way is it, you know? Got trouble finding it.
Probably, yeah, good question.
Let's see.
The
Slow.
bollard plans were at the end of the package, so it's
Okay, let me get to it here.
so the stormwater upgrades. So we're looking to install a stormwater filtration unit and a outlet to the Piscataqua River. The photo is just on the screen. You could see the salt streak from where the current runoff goes. So we'd be looking to install that
61?
Try that.
stormwater filtration practice at
I
the
just did.
low point of the site.
Plan,
Oh.
261.
That has been sized to treat the stormwater runoff from the site, and we're using a stormwater filtration system
Oh, no,
that does have the capacity to treat some of the heavy metals, which are the required contaminants they need to test for.
Is this the one you want?
That'll work. So, yeah, so this is the overall site. So the entrance to the site is right here. So this is Market Street. And then this is the building that's to the right of the entrance when you come in. And then when we were on the site walk, we were standing right about in this location. So the bollard we couldn't see is the one that's back over here. The second one they're replacing is there's the existing one right there. The new one will be approximately where this 2 is located. And then this is also the low point on the site, so that is where the stormwater treatment practice will be located. So the application involves a total of 6,675 square feet of previously disturbed tidal buffer impact and 75 square feet of impact to an area below the highest observable tide line, and that is for the construction of the outlet. And it's that 75 square feet that makes this into a major application as opposed to a minor impact or some other type of NHDS application. So that's the project, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Allison?
I didn't see it, maybe it's here, but a maintenance plan for that contact filtration device?
I think you are right, and we have not included that in the package, and I'm sure DS will catch that as well, but we'd be certainly want to have that included so that the maintenance procedures are part of the O&M for the site. The site does have a currently in place operation and maintenance plan for the site as a whole, so that would just be a supplemental document that we could provide to them. But yes, that we will definitely add that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I had a question about timing on construction. You may have it in there, but when are you guys going to be doing that?
So it's not in there, a little bit undetermined. I was talking with Joe actually before we came in about that, and basically the site needs to be empty for them to do this, and
Yeah.
with the mild winter, that pile isn't disappearing as quickly as it normally would. So it's kind of dependent on when the site gets cleared out and when they'd be looking to do that.
And do you have to depend on, like, do you guys have to worry about the sturgeon and the bollard?
No, so that was reviewed by New Hampshire Fish and Game, and they had no concerns with the sturgeon. They did come up on when we did that process, but they didn't give us any time constraints for construction.
Okay, thank you.
Are you saying the whole salt pile has to be gone before you can start?
I don't know. I wouldn't think, yeah,
No.
no.
Say, does that ever happen?
But a large, pretty much so this area is obviously, they don't pile salt right where that would be
Yeah.
going, but to have an active construction zone while this pile is being currently,
Yeah.
trucked off site, you can't really have both going on at the same time.
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
What's the capacity of those bollards? What are they designed for? How much weight?
It was a different company designed the bollard, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Joe said 100 ton. Yeah, Appledore Marine Engineering did the bollard design, and that we did include those plans as an appendix to this submission, just so DES could have a chance to look at them.
Thank you.
I'm unclear as to what the 1 and 5 represent on the map. So you
so-
explained 2 and 4 and 3.
Yeah, this is the photo location plan that was part of the application. So those numbers and arrows correspond to photos that were included with the application, and the arrow is the direction they were taken.
Thank you.
Then, is EPA is not requiring you to worry about the source at all of the heavy metals? I mean, because I know there's a question at the site about, probably there's some historic
Yeah,
sources
that's not part of it. They just have a quarterly testing requirement. And so they take a stormwater sample. Currently, they're just taking it right off the ground. So once the system is installed, we're going to have a manhole downstream of the treatment unit, so they'll be able to pull the sample out of that post-treatment. The tricky one that they're dealing with currently is aluminum, and trying to identify the source as well, which is also proving to be tricky. It's hard to tell where it's coming from.
So there's no, and are there BMPs other than maintaining vehicles better or something like
Yeah,
that?
vehicle maintenance, frequent sweeping of the yard. I think those are the two main ones. I'm sure there's also, procedures if there's spills, stuff like that.
So those are in place or,
Those are in place already, yes.
okay.
Allison has a question.
Oh, sorry, Allison.
Yeah, there was something that I forgot. It's on our page 96, but it's a box that is not checked. There's no yes or no. Is dredging, for dredging projects, is the subject property contaminated?
So this is not a dredging project, which is why it would be
Oh,
unchecked.
it's just that you're going to have to dig in order to be able to situate the Contracts device,
Correct.
but that's not considered dredging.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, does anybody want to make a motion? Yes, Jeff.
I will make a motion to support the proposed site improvements at 227 Market Street on the DES application.
Thank you. Second?
Can we add a stipulation?
Yeah, I was gonna say, with any stipulations if people have
The-
them.
Adding a maintenance plan for the filtration
Oh,
device.
yes, that's right. I forgot that one.
That's the only one I had.
I'll second it, but I also have one more question.
Okay.
So what are you doing with the material that you're taking out with when you're placing the Contracts device?
It would have to be disposed of based on state regulations for disposing of construction debris.
Okay, so it's not going to be tested to see if it's contaminated?
I don't know if there's any requirements related to that. There are legal means of disposing construction materials, and I don't know those regulations off the top of my head.
Okay. So maybe one, just to make sure that nobody misses it, I guess. I
You
hope
say
that they
you
will.
want to add that stipulation, you can test it.
EPA probably will.
Yeah, well, I think that we should add something that they need to properly dispose of anything that is disturbed during the operation to place the Filtrex, or the Contracts filter unit.
That sounds good. Are you okay with that, with your motion? So we have a motion that's first and seconded with two stipulations. You okay with that, Peter? You
Got it.
just to make the recommendation?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion in addition? No? No. Vote, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? Nobody? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much. Oh, that was so much quicker than I thought it was going to be today.
Well, yeah, the next one would have taken forever.
So, we don't have other business on this officially, but we tried to get other business on there, but there is a lot of other business Peter and I have, and then some other people have other business, and I also wanted to welcome Stuart. I should have done that in the beginning, but this is your first official meeting, so it's great to have you here. And I know you've been at all the site visits, which is really great, too, so.
I wondered who you were.
So, and for other business, you had something too, Jess, on this?
Yep.
To start, maybe?
Sure. So, one of my many hats, I am helping to organize an Earth Day kickoff event in collaboration with the Portsmouth Library. It is to be held on April 21st, which is the evening before Earth Day, from 4 to 7. The vision of this event is really to educate the community about all the ways that they can get involved and things that are happening around the seacoast and at the state level, and hopefully encourage them to actually take action on Earth Day and go do something. We've primarily asked a lot of nonprofit organizations, but we've also asked the city to be there as well. So DPW has committed to being there. Hopefully the Blue Ribbon Sustainability Committee will be there in some capacity. I'm talking to Peter and Kate about whether we might have the ability to talk to the contractor for the climate action plan, or at least start to educate people that a climate action plan is coming. And we have a bunch of people who have already committed: Blue Ocean Society, Seacoast Eat Local, Surfrider, Gundalo. I could give you a whole big list. But I wanted to throw it out to this commission and just see if anybody was interested in being there as a representative of the Conservation Commission. And just, again, it'll just be a table, and you can just kind of share about the work that we're doing and opportunities, just so people can know about either actions they can take around NOFA or whatever it might be, so.
Well, I have a quick thought. The city of Providence, when they kicked off their online organic land care program, they did it on Earth Day. You know, they announced it on Earth Day. So I would set a goal to have all that done and reviewed and ready to go by Earth Day.
That'd be great.
So let's we're waiting on PETA to get us approval to work with Alan and IT so we can get going. But Diane's got the stuff ready to go.
Jess, this is at the library?
It'll be at the Connie Bean, actually,
Okay.
and hopefully in the field area next to it as needed. There'll be events, is the hope, so that people can be engaged. We're trying to see if we can get food there in some capacity, but we have to work on that with the city, and maybe some live music or something. So some of the details we're still sorting out at this point, but it is at the Connie Bean, 4 to 7, Friday, April 21st.
Is Laura from the library? Is she the
Yes.
organizer?
She's one of them, yes. There's several people from the library who are
My phone's
involved.
in my bags on it.
Peter, doesn't the city usually plant a tree or something like that on Earth Day?
Arbor Day, they usually. plant
Arbor Day.
trees, yeah. And there's 400 trees being planted this year for the Portsmouth
Right.
400, so
Right.
we could see about maybe getting something along that lines.
Yeah, I think that might be good.
I know Alice and I have done exhibits before, like sustainability things in Portsmouth. And I mean, I'd be happy if you want to have a table just about the Conservation Commission too, to help out with that.
It's
or other
totally
people.
up to you. Like I said, we're just kind of asking people to come and share either what they're doing or ways people can take action on their own or help support their action they're doing already. So we're kind of just letting it be a little organic and whatever feels right for people. But the goal is really to try to bring as many people together, because I know that's, for me, one of the pieces is like there's so many different groups and organizations and committees and things that are all doing different stuff, so it'd be helpful to try to get us together so we can all share with everybody. So, yeah, whatever, again, whatever feels right. But if you're interested in being there, that's great. I will add you to the list in future emails.
Yeah, I would be. I don't know if anybody else wants to.
Be in the email list, so what's going on.
Okay.
Remind me to get going.
Well, I'm wondering if one of the things that either the city table or we could offer is that people could, if we're supposed to be doing something on Earth Day, they could help plant one of those trees. You know what I mean? Like, we could have people sign up with their email address and tell them where to be.
Well, we could also provide the, I think the city already has a list for people that want trees planted as part of the Portsmouth 400. And there's information about that on the website, but we could provide that at the fair or the meet, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah. Kickoff event. I don't
Kickoff
know. Yeah,
event?
sustainability fair. I don't know. It's been called many things.
Yeah, okay.
That would be helpful, actually, because I know I signed up to get some trees, but I think the city website says that you won't get any more information till April or something, which makes sense, but.
Yep,
So.
yeah, I could check with that.
I bet we could brainstorm a few things to have at a table, like if we all teamed up to have a table there. You know, the land care stuff that Ted was talking about, but even like the boundary markers, it'd be fun to like talk to people about those.
Have them for sale.
Yeah.
First boundary marker went up on
Yeah?
Regina Road, yep.
Even like a map of the conservation areas and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
putting out there that, you know, the city's looking to expand their conservation properties. And I'd love for DPW too to talk a little bit more about like some of the kind of stormwater improvements they're trying to do. I don't know if they would want help with that or if they'll
They
do that
will
on
be
their
there.
own.
Brian has committed,
Oh,
so
good.
they'll be there,
So
so.
Brian can talk
Yeah.
about stormwater, that's
Yeah.
good, yep.
Yeah, you can have the Enviroscape or whatever.
DES,
Yeah,
DES table, that,
yeah, the big table
stormwater
that shows
table?
where stormwater
Yeah,
goes.
that'd be cool.
So it's Brian that's doing it.
Yeah, and if anybody else has any other suggestions about groups or anybody else who they think, you know, feel free to email me those as well. Like I said, we have a pretty good long list. A whole bunch of people have committed already, some still maybe, and some we're still waiting to hear back from. But if anybody has any thoughts around that too, we're open to suggestions.
So do we just tell you we want a table, or do we tell?
I will consider that you will be there, and yes, you have a table.
Yeah, where are the tables coming from? Are they from the library or?
Oh, well, that would be helpful. So I know in my past experience doing these events, a lot of these organizations, they kind of just come ready. Like they have tents and tables and they just come with the whole shebang. So I've been asking that of the organizations outside the city, but I would imagine that I could, you know, we can probably ask the Connie Bean to have 5 or 10 tables available just for city pieces.
Yeah, that'd be
I
good.
know when they did the sustainability fair way back, whenever that was, they rented a bunch of tables because there were so many vendors and people that and they tried to make it fit.
Yeah.
So they had like a layout and all that, but this probably isn't quite as big or organized like that,
We're still waiting to see.
but maybe.
Yeah, maybe it'll get there, but right now, yeah, I think we can still sort of manage it. We've talked about mapping out the Connie Bean as we need, once we know how many people are in. And again, once we get a full picture of who's coming and what they can bring, then we'll kind of talk about what else we need to supply and stuff, so.
Great, thank you. So what time do you have to leave, Ted?
In a couple minutes.
Because there were two things that I wanted to bring up that had to do with things you had brought up before, which one was the city annual report. You had asked for something to be in that, and so I was going to draft something, and then with city staff, with Peter and Kate, I think, for this year's, for 2022. So, and then just run it by, just a paragraph or two about what we're doing. He just wanted to have the annual reports, the town annual reports usually, and city have something in there about the Conservation Commission. The other one was, you had mentioned something about the sustainable land care. Do you want to set up another meeting for that? Where are we at with that?
Actually, the last meeting we had in October, I'm very fortunate that I've got Diana assisting on this because she's very experienced in putting together websites. So she had gotten together with Alan Brady, and after our meeting in October, when people here made suggestions and maybe changed the name so it's not the same as Brian's project, you know. And so she took those, incorporated them, and talked to Alan, and he's waiting to hear from the city administration to say, it's okay, you can go on this thing. So we're ready to go, and I think we could get it done in short order once we get the okay, you know, once Alan does the okay.
Yeah, it should be moving along. We have a lot of content that probably needs to be added to, but I think the content needs to be reviewed, the final sign off, but I don't see an issue with it. And hopefully we can get all the graphics and things in it by Earth Day and
Oh, yeah.
have a nice splash for it.
Make a little postcard or something that you could give out, you know, with the URL on it.
Sorry?
You'd make a little postcard or something that we could give out at the table that had the URL and a tiny bit about what you
Yeah,
find there.
or just make a sign with the
Yeah.
QR code,
Yeah.
so people can hit it with their
Less
phones.
trash. Okay.
Yeah.
Sustainability.
Good point.
event.
Right. So no meeting, are you saying then?
Not until we have a whole bunch of context, you know, content. Once she starts working with Alan, then we'll have something we could share a link to, everybody take a look at it, and then set up a subcommittee meeting for those that want to attend. Say, this is it, do you want to change anything, or add anything, or anything like that?
Okay, great, thank you. And then another update I had was that day before yesterday, I did present at the city council meeting when they were talking about the CIP, when they had that as a public hearing. So I just did a sort of a shortened version of the letter. But then as follow-up to that, I got invited to a governance meeting
Oh,
because they're talking about having a parks committee, maybe?
okay.
So it's on Monday, I'm going to go, find out what it's all about, and then report back to everybody and let everybody know, because that seems like definitely something we should be involved in, which I expressed after the invite, so, and see what our role could be. So. And then the regulation update?
Do you want me to give that? Or do you want to give it? Go ahead.
Well, just that you had submitted a letter to the city council.
You had submitted a letter.
Yeah. Asking
Yes,
permission.
From the chair. Yeah.
Yeah, asking permission if it was okay for us to move ahead with regulation updates, planning on some level. So-
Yeah, and the council supported that effort, and just, you know, it was more of a notice that the group wanted to proceed. And as we discussed, I think the process that we talked about was a work group that was going to work on areas to do amendments, not necessarily write the amendment, but specific areas where changes should occur. That work group would come up with a set of amendment ideas, then have a work session with the Conservation Commission, get everybody on board, or change it, or come up with what the commission's final kind of ideas are on that, and then have a work session jointly with the planning board to go over wetland amendments. And then once the planning board and the Conservation Commission have a chance to agree, we can figure out the next steps, but most likely do a more formal specific amendments that would then go to the city council. The way the city council handles it usually is to send it to the land use board, to have them review it, support it. Actually, that they would do that before they created the amendments. They might want to, they'll probably just support it at this case, because it'll probably be pretty far along. And then we might, from there, at some point, draft the ordinances to go to the city council. The process is typically what the process is the planning board sends something to the city council, or the city council sends something to the planning board, but ultimately, both the city council and the planning board have a chance to review it. The city council ultimately approves it. So it's, at the end of the day, the city council is the one that approves changes to the zoning ordinance. But I think the path we've laid out gives a lot of people a chance to participate that are on different boards. There can be a public process as well at different points along the way, and we'll work that in. But that's kind of the vision the council was given, was just that the commission wants to work on them and wanted to get their support, and the council supported that, so.
So Yeah.
I have two questions, Peter. One, is there any, like, deadlines that we have to, like, is there only a certain time when the council will look at these, or?
No, but I'd say there's a lot of zoning things going on. They're doing, doing a height amendment that's almost approved, and there's ADU amendments in the zoning ordinance. And now the land use committee is looking at incentives for housing as the next step in the housing. So housing's been a big focus, but I think after that, there's other things people are talking about it in different ways, but there's no real deadline, I guess is the answer. If you want to get it before this council, then you'd have to do it in their term, and they're the ones that supported it. So I guess that would be one to think about, is
And when
before
is
the end.
that? When is that?
A year from now,
Okay.
or a year from last month.
And then my other question is, you had said we would talk about just like ideas and not actually writing the language. Would we ultimately write the language, or is that like?
Typically, we'd have someone, like a ordinance writer, person who's done that kind
Like
of.
on city staff, or is this like?
It could be
a
city
contract
staff, depending on
thing?
how complicated it is. We often contract for it, but it could go either way.
Okay.
We've done it both ways.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
So the next step is to have a little subcommittee, kind of, look at
Well,
what,
just a work group, I think, is what we had talked about, so it's not really a quorum. And that work group would work with the whole Conservation Commission in a work session format. And whether that's, a separate meeting, or it's straightforward enough that you could send it out in a packet and then talk about it at a meeting, if you have a light meeting, or set up a separate meeting, however you want to do it.
I'll think about it.
And then that work session, after the commission's sort of on board, if it's that one work session or multiple, then let the planning board know that we'd like to have a work session with them and talk about it with them. They might have a different perspective on what they want to change, so get everybody on the same page, hopefully, moving forward. And, yeah, I guess to answer your question on the time frame, the faster it goes, the better, because if there are ordinance changes, it takes 3 readings of the city council, so that might take 2 months, to get
But you're
3
saying they also
readings.
have a lot on their plate right now.
And they have a lot, so, yeah, but the
But
quicker you get it there.
Get in line.
Get in line, yeah.
so
I mean, it doesn't have to go to this council either, but I think, it's just a goal to
They
shoot
look
for.
It's a
favorably
good goal.
on sustainability, so.
yeah. So we have what Sam put together originally, and then I've got sort of a list of different things that we wanted to, so do we want to have that as a little work group first, or as on the agenda here?
I guess it's up to you guys, how you want to handle it.
I mean,
If you feel like you've got it together enough, then
but we have like a lot of ideas. I feel like we discussed that we kind of want to like.
Why don't we have the work group
down.
meet with staff, and we can talk about what makes sense to move forward and what doesn't, maybe, or what, at least we can identify some of the challenges you might have with certain things,
Okay.
or, or not, but at least sort of have an approach,
Yeah.
if you want to do it that way, and then have a work session with the whole commission.
Yeah, I feel like it just needs to be maybe pared down a little bit before it comes in front of the whole commission.
And then everybody can say, oh, this is missing, or that's missing,
Yeah.
which is better than.
But then we can
having to-
say, well, we did talk about that, but this is what staff said, that sort of thing.
And work group is you and
You.
me.
Is there anybody else?
An executive committee.
An executive committee work group. Was there somebody else? that-
wasn't Lynn helping? I thought Lynn was
Yeah,
helping.
Lynn, you were
Lynn, you were on
helping.
it. You were,
Yeah, sorry, like my time is so
Are you recusing
limited, I wasn't.
yourself?
I think if there's been somebody else that wanted to do it, that'd be great. If there isn't, then maybe I would.
Okay.
Anybody else?
You looking at me?
Anybody else want to volunteer?
Yeah, it would be fine. I would like to do it, but the thing is that I'm going to be gone from March 11th through April 2nd, just to let you know.
Okay. I think we can work around that.
Fun. I'm going to Ireland to see my daughter.
Oh, that's awesome.
Then we'll just work with bigger group. Everybody's good with that?
Yeah.
And I know that I have talked to the planning board chair a couple of times, and he's definitely really interested in us all meeting together on this, so, and just in general, for communication. So,
The other idea that we had around this topic was applying for a little grant through PrEP. That if we did want to like bring in a consultant to help with some of the ordinance drafting, or there was even sort of the idea of like maybe even piggybacking some, like a deep dive into the regulations with some, maybe some outreach work, or, I mean, I could come up with a few ideas in that compartment.
Yeah, I think one of the-
Educating realtors, for example.
One of the things that we didn't understand was what enabling legislature there was to enact some of these. You know what I mean? Peter said there had to be enabling.
Somebody
Yeah, it depends
to
how
look
far
into
you
that.
go. Yeah, people have a handle on that.
I don't think those grants have been announced yet, but that would be, I don't know.
So they're like for technical assistance kind of grants?
I mean, I think it's just money that town could use however, or the city could use however they want. But yeah, you could use it to hire somebody to provide assistance if you wanted, but it's actually cash. You know,
Okay. Are you familiar with that one?
Not this program, no.
I mean, I think it'll be like PREPA.
Okay.
Isn't PREPA like a review of the ordinances that are in place?
Yeah, they call them PREPA grants. So I think it's like a small grant program to support communities and sort of moving in the trajectory of like, you know, doing
Improving.
better in those
Yeah.
indicators that PREPA monitors.
Yep.
But I think this kind of thing would be eligible.
Bye, Ted.
Bye, Ted.
Have it listed.
I made a note.
Okay.
I
Yes.
I have some, are we done with that topic? I have
Yes,
something
go-
else,
go
just
ahead.
totally random. Is it possible to get bookmarks in the packet for plans?
It's possible.
Or,
Yes,
and
I
or
will.
site photos too? I mean,
I will.
just when the packet is like 600 pages, it's
Yeah,
kind of
I know.
hard to find things.
Well,
But if that's.
typically the packet also has the breakout of each one, so you can look at them individually that way. But usually there are bookmarks in there for each item.
There is, for each.
But internal bookmarks,
Topic.
it depends on how we receive it sometimes too.
Okay.
So I'm not totally familiar with how to do
Okay.
that, but I can ask about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I asked him before, and he said it was possible,
Yeah,
so.
it's like I said.
But I bet it's more work.
I mean,
on
I
his
think
part.
this might have been the biggest packet we've ever received, so.
I was going to say, is 600 pages a standard?
No, but like, they
It's
are
just
so
the
big.
front
State wetland permits, state wetland permits are very long.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information there, and you got to learn how to sort
And
through
a
it.
lot of it is repetitive, too.
Yep.
Totally. Yeah.
But, so what I had sent you an email about, I'm wondering if we could have, if 105 Bartlett is going to come back, if they can do a summary of the changes that they've had to make to the,
I did talk to them about that.
Oh, you did?
Before they postponed. So they're willing.
Good.
What do they do?
because that is a very large, complex project that we spent hours going over, so.
And many meetings. And the
Many
project
meetings.
changed along the way because of the input they got, so it was quite a bit.
If they have figures too that show like maps that show how it changed over time, that'd be awesome, but.
What are the rules, if there are any, to recuse yourself? Because I found out Sunday talking to a friend and spent the afternoon with him. He's an attorney, for a company that is involved in that project. I'm like,
If it's you have a conflict, if you've been involved in it directly somehow, or that might bias your opinion about it, or if you're financially going to benefit from the outcome of the decision, or if you work for one of the companies, different things. But we can talk about it if you want. You can ask, but you can. It's kind of using your own judgment in a lot of cases. But if
Yeah.
there's a direct, if you've been involved in it and spoken about it outwardly before you see it, then that's kind of a bias that that would be clear, or the financial side. Sometimes it gets gray and people just feel more comfortable saying, I don't want to be involved because I know them really well and I wouldn't want to vote no kind of thing, then that might be a reason. So you kind of have to use your judgment at some point, but ideally it's kind of like the juror standard. You want to come into it with an objective viewpoint that there's no bias that you're bringing to the table when you first review the application.
Yeah.
That's sort of the
Okay.
best way to think about it.
And then there's perceived bias too. So if, like, somebody contacts me about, or in the past, they say, I'm trying to do this thing on my property, and I'm going to be coming to the Conservation Commission, and it's like, don't talk to me, because if you talk to me now, then I have to recuse myself, sort of thing. And it just sort of keeps it simple. And people don't try to sway you or anything, because they don't want you to recuse yourself anyway. So,
Well, the thing is, though, that there are public hearings about certain things, or once we have a site walk, I mean, I become biased when I see something.
That's how you're introducing yourself to the application
Okay.
as a Conservation Commission member on
Okay.
a site walk.
Okay.
Same in.
I mean, if it's a hearing with a different board, that's another story.
Right.
Outside information.
I have one more item.
Oh, go ahead, yes, sorry.
So I think everybody knows we applied for a grant from the Moose Plate grant to do a wetland update of our citywide wetland maps, and we got it. We're going to get $20,000 to do a citywide update of our citywide wetland maps. So
Maybe they could come over to my property.
you probably will. You probably will.
Well, the thing is, it's not on any maps that it's wetland, and yet I pay for flood insurance, so it would be good if somebody could look at it.
Well, if it's flood insurance, it hasn't flooded, right? So
It has not.
So it has to flood. No, we can, if, that's a great idea. We could make a list of properties where we know that our maps are wrong, to have them do field work and inspect those. That's the idea, is to look at the boundaries, see where they've changed. You know, there's places where beavers have expanded the boundaries the last 5 years, so it's really wetland now where it wasn't. Or the stormwater or drainage has changed so that an area doesn't receive water, it might not be wet anymore. Different things have happened. The original maps were just wrong in some places, so, yeah. So that was the idea. It's pretty far out of date. 2003, they did that effort. And it's not a delineation, it's still just a guide, but it's something we use quite a bit and applicants use, and saves people a lot of money not to have to do a delineation on a really small project like a shed or something, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I moved to the property 44 years ago, and there's been a perennial stream on my property for that entire time. It's never been dry, and yet it shows nowhere. So,
Would have been good if that had been mapped a long time ago. It does show up on an old USGS map.
does it?
I've seen it.
I have one other question.
Anything else?
Just, wasn't there going to be a flood risk workshop? Or did I miss it? Or did it get canceled? Or? No, I literally missed it? Oh,
Last week, yeah.
okay.
They should have sent out another reminder.
And it was great, honest to God, it was
Bus
really
reminder.
good.
But not on that day.
I
was-
think
it
I
was
got the
recorded,
link.
I think.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I don't think I actually was able to go, even though I signed up, so I can send you the link to
think
the
there is a
recording.
recording.
Okay, cool. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there was little breakouts that weren't recorded.
Right, right, of
Those were,
course.
different groups.
But they were going to put notes together on
So
the
it was all virtual then,
Yep.
with the planning board?
With
Planning board,
members of
BOA,
different.
HDC, everybody, city council, everybody was invited, all the
I
boards.
got was like one message from Isaac, like back in December. Like that was
Yeah, I wonder if
literally the only message I
got
got.
the new list of people on the conscom? Yeah, they got it from us.
I don't know, you only got one message about it?
Yeah. In
You
December,
had to register.
right?
Maybe
And
that
then
was
you
the
had to
email
get on the
register,
list.
and then maybe you got
Okay.
more emails.
I think once you register.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
That might have been, yeah. Oh. And then if anybody, I know Allison and I think Stuart, you attended the first session of the Association of Conservation Commissions thing on wetland delineation, kind of, or identifying
Oh,
what.
great.
Was it good?
I thought it was good. I don't,
No, super interesting,
Yeah,
definitely.
sit on
yeah,
that
you
too.
had
It was
that
good.
too. Right.
Was that virtual also?
Yeah.
I think they're going to have one or two in person. There's like a series of 6.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they do record those too,
Yeah.
which is helpful because it's in the middle of the day. But I strongly recommend registering, and they'll do the same thing. They'll send it out to you if you can't go.
Yeah, I said that I couldn't, I registered, and I told Barbara, Barbara, that I couldn't make it then, but that I read if you registered, then you could see it later. And she was going to send something out. Did any of you guys, because I didn't get anything
I got it,
to
yeah.
have the, to get the link.
I'll
Okay.
ask her.
So I was going to follow up, but I wanted to ask you guys, because I.
It hasn't
thought
gone
maybe
out
it
yet,
just-
because I looked for it also.
What?
It hasn't gone out yet, because
Okay.
I looked for it also and
Okay.
supposed to still.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I got the one of them, one you mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay.
Make a
everybody,
motion
thank
to
you.
adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can't vote. This is really weird.